All right, welcome to the Bulletin Board Sports Podcast. It's episode 4. Hard Knocks episode 4 just ended. We're going to have our live reaction right now. And to kick it right off the bat, I should say, what's up? It's Pat. I got my guys Christian and Mike with me. Talking sports, talking football specifically, professional football. That's what we're talking for right now. Stay tuned, possibly for a basketball podcast as well. But right now, we're in the football season, and we're talking Hard Knocks. And right off the bat, Chicago Bears Hard Knocks, something that I noticed specifically was Ian Cunningham and how he has been Ryan Poles' right-hand man. He looks like a guy that is not just a yes man sitting there to agree with whatever Poles says. He looks like he has his own agency and autonomy. I think that the Bears are in a great spot having him as the assistant general manager, not just for the decision-making aspect, but also because if he gets hired, he will get them a compensatory pick in the third round, which is huge. The San Francisco 49ers have built their roster off of those type of moves. So watching Ian Cunningham walk through the roster with Ryan Poles, seeing him throughout this entire series be on Ryan Poles' right side with him every step of the way is encouraging, and I think it's only a matter of time before he gets a general manager role.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think the front office has shown a great face the whole show. I thought they've done a great job highlighting like even the athletic trainer, certain positional coaches they talked about as well, and Kevin Warren has also been constant throughout this show. I think it's really interesting to see him basically a part of every aspect of the Bears organization. Like
interesting is a word.
Yeah.
That's a word for it. Yeah.
He was doing like the stadium stuff too as well. I thought it's kind of crazy how he's so tied together with everything. Even the player, he's in the player meetings. You could see him next to the athletic trainer. I thought it was hilarious.
I noticed the same thing. I mean, I just before I let you talk, Mike, I was stunned that I've seen Kevin Warren this involved in football decision making. I thought this guy was just here to build the stadium. I thought he helped U.S. Bank get built. He went and was the Big Ten commissioner, and now he's the president of the Bears organization. Nowhere in that does it say he has any football acumen whatsoever. This guy was a basketball player way back in the day, which is where he got his sports credentials. So he has never been a football decision maker. He helped the Vikings build a beautiful stadium. It's state of the art. I think it's the best stadium in the NFL. But I want him to do that for the Bears, and I want him to stay out of football decisions.
It seemed like it. I mean, I don't think any of the communication was problematic, though. But I kind of see where you're coming from, Pat. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And a stay in your lane.
Not worse than Jerry either. Not worse than Jerry.
Well, I could do my own 5-hour podcast about Jerry Reinsdorf and the White Sox
Jerry
and the Bulls
Jones,
and his
bro. We're not going to talk about
we're talking about Jerry Jones.
Reinsdorf.
I thought you were talking about Jerry Reinsdorf. No,
that's
the worst.
That too.
Jerry Reinsdorf, Jerry Jones. No, we're talking pro football. Like I said, I'm in the Bulletin Board Sports Basketball Podcast world at this point. No. Jerry, yeah, he's not like Jerry Jones, but Mike, I will tell you, Kevin Warren is a certified weirdo. I'm surprised they haven't done a focus on him. This guy he was leading prayers that the Bears were going to bring a Super Bowl to Chicago. This guy's praying to God that the Bears are going to get wins. He's a little on the wacky side, in my opinion. That's not speaking for all the Bulletin Board Sports Podcast, but Kevin Warren, I think the guy seems like a great, nice guy. If not a little weird, but he shouldn't be in football decisions is all I'm saying. And I think it's uncomfortable that he's sitting in on every meeting, but as long as Ryan Poles is pulling the strings, I can't really complain.
The only part I'd be worried about him with is just kind of what he did to the Big Ten, and then now coming over to the Bears. Like, do you really want to make a splash like that? I mean, how much how much is he going to do? But obviously, you brought UCLA, USC into the Big Ten, and that's still a head scratcher. But
he's an abrasive personality. And like I said, that U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota is as good as it gets in terms of NFL stadiums. So I want that for the Bears, whether it's in Arlington Heights or downtown. And if he has to be the guy that does it, that gets it done to bring it to us, then all the power to him. But please just stay out of the football meetings once again.
Yeah. So as far as like the on the field stuff, I mean, anyone who was familiar with the Bears, what happened in the preseason game, the last preseason game, knew pretty much before watching what was going to happen to Ian Wheeler. I thought even knowing that was really tough to watch. I mean, that's like every worst nightmare you can imagine.
Right.
Felt real bad for him. Glad he gets to stick around in the locker room at least. But yeah, tough to see all the time. But
I'm happy for him. I'm happy that this has kind of worked out in a way as best it can for him in the sense that if you're going to tear your ACL, being able to have what he called a redshirt season, and Poles basically agreed to that this was a redshirt season for him where he can learn. I don't know if there was a spot for Ian Wheeler, a healthy Ian Wheeler, on the active roster on this team. So this may be a blessing in disguise. You can never call a torn ACL a blessing. And I mean, you saw how torn up he was about it. Watching him being consoled by his mom for a solid minute on Hard Knocks, that was really tough to watch. It's a devastating situation, but I think the Bears and Ian Wheeler are making the best of it. A torn ACL is not an easy injury to come back from, but we've seen guys do it, even at the running back position. Adrian Peterson isn't every day. He doesn't happen every day, but he did come back better than ever from a torn ACL. So if that could happen for Ian Wheeler, I don't know, but I felt bad for the guy, man. If you watch the past 4 episodes of Hard Knocks, it has been Chad Morton roasting the Bears running back coach, roasting Ian Wheeler. I'll tell you what, the Bears running backs better be great. This offense better be top notch, and Chad Morton better be a reason why, because the guy does not seem likable. He's not coming off as a likable guy on Hard Knocks. He seems cocky. He seems he's babying Velus Jones while trashing Ian Wheeler. He came off as somewhat of a villain of Hard Knocks, if there ever was one. Did you guys see that? I thought Jennifer King came off great, and I like her as a coach for the Bears. She's a good communicator, but Chad Morton kind of seemed like a D-bag of sorts.
I'll give Ian Wheeler, as you touched on, Pat, some credit. I mean, he did score that one touchdown against the Bills in their first game, but the kind of like, I don't know, the trash talking like star players in camp. Like, come on, man. Like, I don't know where that really fits in, but I mean, obviously it's in good fun. I mean, they're professionals at the end of the day, but I don't know if he needed his own. I don't know if he needed a highlighted segment to show that.
Yeah, it started the fight too. I mean, the trash talking by Morton and Jennifer King. It seemed like it was being led by the coaches, and then Ian Wheeler gets popped by Jerron Dexter, and all of a sudden, you got Montez Sweat laughing and trash talking, and a scuffle being broken up. I thought I kind of had higher expectations for what that was going to be based on everybody hyping it up on Twitter and social media, that there was going to be some crazy fight that you were going to see on Hard Knocks. It looked like it was basically just an argument, but man, I can't wait for these guys to be jawing and trash talking with opposing players and actual opponents in the NFL, as opposed to just the guys that they've been hitting and practicing with every day. So I get that it gets chippy, but man, like I said, it's tough to see Ian Wheeler go through what he went through at the hands of Chad Morton all training camp, and having it be broadcast on national television with Chad Morton just constantly dogging him on one side, and then turning to Velus Jones and saying, "You're doing so great, Velus. We're so proud of you, Velus." When in reality, we all know that I love Ryan Poles, but we all know that the reason Velus Jones is here, the reason he's still on the roster, is because he was the first offensive draft pick by Ryan Poles, and they're looking for any reason to keep him as a contributor or as someone on the roster for Ryan Poles' resume. So it's not ideal that you have him as a running back on this team, but damn, he really showed out in that game against Kansas City. I got to hand it to him after I've been kind of giving it to him this whole training camp.
Yeah, and you do have to give him credit. Like, he can only do what's put in front of him, and he did play really well in the last game when he needed to. Combine that with Ian's injury. I did think it was surprising that we kept 5 running backs. We ended up keeping Homer and the other 3. We cut Kari Blasingame, but we should get him back tomorrow. He's a veteran, so he should come back tomorrow. Just had to be like a roster move.
We'll see. I mean, so much of these guys come down to special teams, right?
Yeah, and Blasingame is great special teams fullback as well. So we should get him back. Bayless gives us some flexibility. We only have 5 receivers on the roster right now on the 53-man. So Bayless does give us some flexibility there and in the return game. So it's okay to give him one more year. It would have been tough to see at the end if Ian Wheeler was available to play. It would have been tough for me to see Ian lose his job. He would have lost the job, though, to Bayless, but it would have been tough to see. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, and Bayless, just real quick, I got to hand it to Bayless in terms of his versatility. This is a guy that he should know the wide receiver playbook at this point. He's only been a running back for about 2 weeks now. So he should know the wide receiver playbook. He should be able to step in at wide receiver in a pinch. He will be a running back. He's a starter. He's going to be a gunner, a special teams starter, a gunner, kick returner. The guy is a valuable special teams player, and I think that if he weren't a third-round pick, we probably wouldn't be giving him as much grief as he's gotten. But the expectations are there. The expectations are going to be there, especially on a team that's going to be contending now. You can't have the mistakes and the gaffes that he's shown you time and time again. I don't trust him to return punts. He fumbled a kickoff return earlier this season, which is extremely rare, or early in the preseason, which is very rare. And doesn't bode well. But damn, I want this guy to succeed. And if he's on the roster and he can carve out a niche for himself as running back, then all the power to him. He's going to be one of the fastest players on the field, but can he hold on to the ball is going to be what it comes down to with Bayless Jones. So, I mean, we could talk about Bayless all day for sure. I mean, I could either trash polls for Bayless or praise him for seemingly almost every other draft pick he's made because he's been pretty good in the draft. But we're going to hold that against him until Bayless pans out.
Yeah, I guess moving on.
I really got to talk about this. I'm sorry. Looking through my notes. Did you guys see this? It's a short clip. But I'm telling you, this was so important to me. You see Caleb standing in the middle of the field. Eberflus approaches him and basically says the quarterback's coach is telling you to spike the ball a certain way to avoid getting an intentional grounding. But the way that Flus says it is like, so here you go, Caleb. You're going to take it, and then you're going to step back and spike it. But you can't step this way. And that's all he says. And he just goes, you can't step that way. And then Caleb's just like, okay. And if you watch it, Caleb was literally like, all right, and kind of scoffs at him like, okay, so you're not going to explain this to me. Like, you don't really have a way of explaining this to me. And then Flus acknowledges that, and he's kind of like, he goes, I'm just telling you what the guy told me. I'm just telling you what he told me. And again, Caleb just is like, all right, like, I guess I don't know what to say. I'll do it the way you told me to just because, apparently. But, man, that was really, really disappointing to see from a guy who I've liked what I've seen from Flus thus far. I loved the defensive coach to quarterback one-on-one meeting. I thought it was a good look for him in episode 3, but seeing that in episode 4 was really disappointing.
Yeah, Pat, what did you take of, him kind of then having his session in the principal's office of seeing highlights of how to in-game spike it? That was a little really, you're going to put your number one pick through that right now? You're going to make a
Right.
thing out of this?
Right, and the
And
way I watched,
They were showing highlights of spikes. Like
they were showing him how to correctly and incorrectly spike the ball, which I'll say another way of looking at it is if that's their biggest concern is making sure that Caleb is spiking it correctly, then that bodes well. That's a good problem to have, that if that's your number one issue and just the mechanics of spiking. But it was very weird the way that I don't know if that's the assistant quarterback coach or whatever, was talking to Caleb Williams, the number one pick, the chosen one of Chicago, and going, okay, do you know? And now he's going to spike the ball because he doesn't want to get a penalty. Okay, you get it, baby boy? Like is how it felt to me. So I was disappointed with that too. I did not love the coaching to Caleb segments this week. Man, I hope Kerry Joseph is the coach that Shane Waldron has hired him to be to develop this guy, because it's such an important role for this staff coming over from Seattle with Waldron to be developing a young quarterback. We didn't really see it from them ever under Pete Carroll. They traded for Drew Lock. They didn't really have a young quarterback to develop, so we're kind of seeing it for the first time. Is Caleb a can-miss pick? Let's hope so, if you're a Bears fan. But it's going to be a big test for this offensive staff to develop him, and I didn't appreciate him getting babied in that segment. I appreciate you bringing that up, Mike. But we're there. Yeah, go for it.
Well, the last couple of notes I had were just all the backups taking the field trip to the Willis Tower, and Tyson Bagent wearing the those sandals. That was
oh yeah,
not yeah. I get that's a look.
You got Tyson Bagent wearing the sandals, and then you had Austin Reed, the undrafted free agent rookie of this season, wearing the Nike Panda low top. He looked very fresh, I must say, and my girlfriend was impressed watching with me that he had some style for being and I was like, that guy had a $7,500 signing bonus and an unguaranteed contract. So all the respect to him for his drip and his play on the field. Can we talk about for a sec Austin Reed, for a guy that was, once again, just like last year with Bagent, an undrafted free agent quarterback? It is not easy to be a quarterback in the NFL, even in the preseason, when some of these guys make it look easy. Obviously, defenses are playing a lot of man. They're not showing you complex defenses, but he was making every throw. He was accurate. He was moving. He was being able to roll out off of play action, throw on the run. I liked what I saw from Austin Reed. I don't want him playing in the regular season for the Bears. He seems like a nice, funny guy. I'd love to have a beer with him. I don't want him playing this season. I trust Tyson Bagent a lot more. Even after last year as a rookie, I thought that Tyson Bagent looked electric, and that's what earned him the backup job as an undrafted rookie last year. But once again, Austin Reed, great preseason all around. He probably will be on the Bears practice squad going forward. And I don't know, that rule, I guess, just got struck down about the emergency practice squad elevated quarterback. But we'll see. I think that Austin Reed, it can't hurt to have a solid third-string quarterback that you got for nothing as an undrafted free agent behind your backup, who you also got for nothing as an undrafted free agent. So the Bears are in a good spot with their QB room.
Well, they cut what's his face? They cut Rippon and they, well, I believe that
Brett Rippon has probably been referred to as what's his face in most NFL
Austin Reed. They're gonna waive they waived Austin Reed as well ahead of the deadline, but
I don't expect him to get picked up. I think he'll be on the
He should make the practice
squad. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
I agree.
So there's 16 spots that we got for practice squad. A couple other names that we saw throughout the show was Colin Johnson and Reddy Stewart. They got waived. Hopefully they make the practice squad. Hopefully they don't get snagged by some other teams. There were a couple of guys. Pretty much the big roster shifts for the Bears, or the big highlights, I guess, is we kept 5 running backs. We cut Kari, but we're going to re-sign Kari. We kept 6 edge rushers, including Dominique Robinson. and we kept 4 safeties and 6 corners, 5 linebackers, and Baskerville is gone. So we kept Noah Sewell. I think that's for special teams.
Right.
But yeah, everything. I think you have your first waiver claim tomorrow is at 11 a.m. Central Time, and there's a whole order. So we'll see how
we could see a change. By the time this episode is posted, it'll be tomorrow morning. So the waiver claim shouldn't happen by that point. I hope Reddy Stewart's back on the Bears practice squad. That would suck to see that guy go because he had a standout preseason. If this cornerback room and secondary overall wasn't as deep, and this was, and they had the same depth as something like the defensive line, Reddy Stewart would be on this team just based on the phenomenal preseason that he had.
Right.
Coming out as an undrafted free agent. Let's hope that guy finds a spot on the practice squad. And you know what? If another team picks him up that needs help in the secondary, they're going to be getting a solid gem in Reddy Stewart. So fair play to him in that case.
Shout out Doug. Doug made the team.
Doug Kramer. Doug Kramer is the backup center. I love it. If Ryan Bates is going to be out for these first few weeks, Doug Kramer, you got a guy who is as reliable as you can count on when it comes to somebody who has been around high-level football, playing in the Big Ten for 6 years, being in the practice squad these past couple of years for the Bears. I love it. I'm expecting if he is put in, he'll be a perfectly servable center for the Bears. It'll be like nothing like we've seen with the turmoil these past few seasons. I think that if you've got Doug Kramer as your backup center, I'm not just saying this because we knew the guy from way back when. I love that for the Bears, and I think that's a solid depth piece to have on the offensive line, something they haven't had in a long time.
Pat, do you think right now that the Bears, and Christian, this is for you as well, do you think they would prefer to start Ryan Bates right now if he were healthy rather than kind of play this like roulette with Nate Davis's availability at this point? I feel like that's kind of a big question mark with the construction of the offensive line at this point. What do you guys think?
I mean, we could tag team it, Christian, but I think that you have to consider what you got Ryan Bates for. This guy you traded, was it a 5th round pick that could be a 4th, depending on how much he plays, I think is how that conditional 5th works. That's for a guy who has not been a starter in the NFL at any point. This is a rotational guy. That's a lot of draft capital to be investing in to what this point has been a moving piece along the offensive line. So I imagine that they do have big plans for him. They started him out at center. So I think, to answer your question, Mike, if all things being equal, everyone healthy, they would have Ryan Bates starting with Coleman Shelton as the backup center. It's not what I would do. As I've said before, I think that in my ideal world, they would just simplify all of this. Kick Ryan Bates to right guard, take Nate Davis out because I just don't trust the guy, and keep Coleman Shelton in at center. But I do think, Mike, to answer your question, that they would put Bates at center if it were up to them. Christian, go off that.
Christian, and one thing I wanted to bounce off you, Christian, is just, I mean, the one concerning part about that unit in particular is just the depth, and just the depth that they have, and the importance of that unit to what this entire team, the Bears, wants to accomplish. That you have, these are the guys that are protecting the new toast of the city. I mean, I think. Do you think it's a position that they might try to address in free agency, or when we see who gets cut, we see who gets put on practice squad with all these other teams? Do you think there's going to be a move or two that might be made maybe early on in the season, just depending on health? I mean, that's going to be a position group that's going to make or break the trajectory of your young quarterback and of your team going forward in protecting him. So I just feel like there's still going to be probably some moves to be had there.
Yeah, I think keeping 10 guys on the roster, I think that's kind of slightly unusual. So I think there is a concern that they want to keep Caleb healthy, and they want all the depth, as much depth as possible on the O-line. Um, I agree with Pat. I think when Poles traded for Ryan Bates, I think the goal was always to have him play starting center, Shelton backup. But Shelton is a good bridge center. He was good in LA last year. So I don't mind him starting. I agree with you, Pat. I think if all things went completely well from what we saw, I don't really want Nate Davis starting at right guard. I would like Bates there, but Bates has missed so much time the last couple of weeks. It's just you pretty much are stuck with Nate. You have to see what he's got at least through the first couple of weeks. I am happy that we kept Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor as arguably he's the third string right guard if Bates is healthy. I like Matt Pryor a lot. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I would say, just having 10 guys on the roster is good. There's no rush on Kyron. It doesn't look like he's going to see a ton of reps this year, hopefully. Borum is on the short-term IR to start the season. We kept Bill Murray, I believe, but overall, it's all going to come down to the main guys. I don't think Bates or Shelton are the main guys that are going to have to really step up. I think for this team to really be successful, like Tevin Jones is going to have to be a top 10 guard. I think
for the whole season. I think when Tevin Jenkins is playing, he is a top 10 guard.
Yes, for the whole season,
stay healthy.
At least 16 games. And Braxton Jones, I would love to see him take a step. He's really on it's a prove it deal right now. Kyron is pretty much his replacement if he doesn't show any sign of growth. And then Darnell, we all have huge, high expectations for Darnell. I think everyone in Chicago does. If they can all take the step, if those three guys can take a step, I think we'll be fine with Shelton and whoever plays right guard this year. The one concern I do have with the O-line is the running offense. I don't know if that's necessarily on the O-line, though. It could be a combination of who we have in the backfield as well.
Swift
is more of a,
are you saying that
guy?
Are you saying that you're worried about the running game because of the preseason or because of where does your concern come from? Sorry. Where does your concern come from with the Bears running game?
Well, I think for
the Bears
me,
run blocking at this point.
For me, it is kind of the scheme that Waldron is in. He did a good job with Kenneth Walker last year. I just think with Swift, I don't know if he's going to be running the ball in the similar manner that he did for Philly last year. I don't see necessarily the push that I would love to see early on in the season, but at the same time, it's not like we've seen the best five out there. It's not like Poles or Flus or Waldron has really had the opportunity to even see who could be the best five for this group. So it's really early. But I guess really week one is in my mind, and I'm looking at Tavondre Sweat in the preseason. I'm looking at Jeff Simmons, and it's just like, damn, we might be in for a rude awakening if we don't step it up, if we don't increase the concern around here.
Unfortunately, and this wouldn't be an issue on other Bears teams because we would just accept it. And I've talked about this before. The Bears do not have to accept subpar, overpriced offensive line play just because it's overpriced and they don't want to accept the dead cap hit. There's a $10 million elephant in the room with Nate Davis as to why he's still the offensive starting right guard for the Bears. And it's the reason that he's still playing. It's the reason he's still on the team. He didn't perform up to his contract last season. Whatever the circumstances are that kept him from practicing, he hasn't been available to practice for the team and at times hasn't been available in game. If this guy were an undrafted free agent named John Smith, he'd be off the team already. So they're waiting to give this guy, I think if anybody's on a prove-it deal, it's Nate Davis. This guy, if he doesn't perform to the level he was at his best with the Titans, he will be cut next season. It's a $10 million cap hit savings that they would have by cutting him next season. I think it would only count like $1 million against the cap versus this season it would count $11 million, roughly those numbers against the cap. That's why the Bears are accepting Nate Davis as their offensive guard at this point. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he keeps Caleb safe. But just like you said, it's not going to get easier than it has in the preseason, and he was getting dominated when I saw him play in the preseason, with one of Caleb's only real hiccup plays being a play where he got sacked because Nate Davis got put in a turnstile by what I believe to be one of the depth defensive tackles for the Bengals. So yeah. I was concerned with Nate Davis as, this team's starting offensive guard, but it goes back to a theme of we got to trust Flus, Poles. These guys know, they've been watching practice. They know who the best five is, who the best five are. And so I hope they're right. I really hope that they can handle Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat. But, Christian, that's a good point. And that Titans team is getting better and better seemingly every day with every addition they make. So it's looking less and less like a doormat walkover in week one, and it's going to look like a legitimate challenge for a rookie quarterback. So it's by no means a slam dunk. I still can't wait for it, though. I can't wait for the season to start.